Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we'll continue our reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 25, verse number 17. Grantha Bade Punah Rukti Hayat Kathana Tahan Ye Nan Likhilun Taha Kariye Likhana. So let's invite the Lordships by praying to them. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatamam bande Shri Gurum Deen Tarinam Paramananda Madhvam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Shlok 17. Grantha Bade Punarukti Hayat Kathana Tahan Ye Na Likhulun Taha Kariye Likhana. Since I have already described this incident very elaborately in the 7th chapter of the Adi Lila, I do not wish to increase the size of this book by giving another description. However, I shall try to include this in this chapter whatever was not described there. Shlok 18. Ye divasa prabhu sanyasire kripa kaila se divasa haite grame kolahal haila. Beginning from the day on which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed his mercy to the Mayavadi sannyasis, there were vivid discussions about this conversion among the inhabitants of Vārāṇasī. Shlok 19. Lokera sanghata aise prabhure dekhite nana shastre pandita aise shastra vicharite. Crowds of people came to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from that day on, and scholars of various scriptures discussed different subjects matters with the Lord. Shlok 20. Sarva Shastre Khandi Prabhu Bhakti Kare Sar Sayuktika Vakye Mana Phiraye Sabar. When people came to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to discuss the principles of various scriptures, the Lord defeated their false conclusions and established the predominance of devotional service to the Lord. With logic and argument, he very politely changed their minds. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We have been spreading the Sankirtan movement in the Western countries, and in our recent tour of European cities like Rome, Geneva, Paris and Frankfurt, many learned Christian scholars, priests, philosophers and yogis came to see us, and by the grace of Krishna, they agreed that the Krishna consciousness movement, the Bhakti cult, offers the topmost conclusion. Following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we are trying to convince everyone that the devotional service to the Lord is enjoined in every scripture. If a person is religious, he must accept the supreme authority of the Lord, become his devotee and try to love him. This is the real principle of religion. It does not matter whether one is Christian, Muslim or whatever. He simply must accept the sublime position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and render service unto him. It is not a question of being Christian, Muslim or Hindu. One should be purely religious and freed from all these material designations. In this way, one can learn the art of devotional service. This argument appeals to all intelligent men, and consequently, the Krishna consciousness movement is gaining ground throughout the world due to a solid logic and scientific presentation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prediction that the Krishna consciousness will spread to every town and village throughout the world is gradually being realized. Shlok 21. Upadesha Lena Kare Krishna Sankirtan Sarva Lok Hase Gaye Kare Nartan. As soon as people received instructions from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they began to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Thus everyone laughed, chanted and danced with the Lord. Verse 22. Prabhure Pranat Haila Sanyasira Gana Atma Madhye Goshti Kare Chadi Adhyana. All the Mayavadi sannyasis offered their obeisances unto Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and then began to discuss his movement, giving up their studies of Vedanta and Mayavadi philosophy. Verse 23. Prakashanandera Shishya Ek Tanhar Saman Sabha madhe kahe prabhur kariya samman. One of the disciples of Prakashananda Saraswati, who was as learned as his guru, began to speak in that assembly, offering all respects to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Verse 24, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Haya Sakshat Narayan Vyasa Sutrera Artha Karena Ati Manorama. He said, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan himself. When he explains the Vedanta Sutra, he does so very nicely. Verse 25, Upnishadera Karena Mukhyartha Vyakyana Shuniya Pandit Lokera Judaya Manakana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains the direct meaning of the Upanishads. When all learned scholars hear this, their minds and ears are satisfied. Verse 26, Sutra Upanishadera Mukhyartha Chadiya Acharya Kalpana Kare Agraha Kariya. Giving up the direct meaning of the Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishads, Shankaracharya imagines some other interpretation. Verse 27, Acharya Kalpit Artha Ye Pandita Shune Mukhe Haya Haya Kare Hridaya Na Mane. All the interpretations of Shankaracharya are imaginary. Such imaginary interpretations are verbally accepted by learned scholars, but they do not appeal to the heart. Verse 28, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Vakya Drida Satyamani Kali Kale Sannyase Samsara Nahi Jini. The words of Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are firm and convincing, and I accept them as true. In this age of Kali, one cannot be delivered from the material clutches simply by formally accepting the renounced order. Verse 29, Harer Nam Shlokera Ye Karila Vyakhyana Se Satya Sukhadartha Param Praman. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's explanations of the verse beginning Harer Nam is not only pleasing to the ear, but is strong factual evidence. Verse 30, Bhakti Vina Mukti Nahe Bhagavate Kaya Kali Kale Nama Bhase Sukhe Mukti Haya. In this age of Kali, one cannot attain liberation without taking to the devotional service of the Lord. In this age, even if one chants the holy name of Krishna imperfectly, he still attains liberation very easily. Verse 31, Shreshya Strim Sritim Bhaktim Udasyate Vibho Klishyanti Ye Kevala Bodha Labdhaye Tesham Asau Kleshala Eva Shishyate Nanyad Yatha Sthula Tushavaghaitanam. My dear Lord, devotional service unto you is the only auspicious path. If one gives it up simply for speculative knowledge or the understanding that these living beings are spirit souls and the material world is false, he undergoes a great deal of trouble. He only gains troublesome and inauspicious activities. His actions are like beating a husk that is already devoid of rice. His labor becomes fruitless. Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.4. Verse 32. Ye anye ravindaksha vimukta maninas tvai asta bhavad avishuddha buddhayah aruhya krichena param padam tatah patanti adho nadrita yushmad angrayaha. O lotus-eyed one who thinks they are liberated in this life, but who are devoid of devotional service to you, are of impure intelligence. Although they accept severe austerities and penances and rise to the spiritual position, to impersonal Brahman realization, they fall down again because they neglect to worship your lotus feet. But this is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.32. Verse 33. Brahma Shabde Kahe Shad Aishwarya Purna Bhagwan Tanre Nirvishesh Sthapi Purnata Haya Hena. Han. The word Brahman, the greatest, indicates the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full in all six opulences, but if we take the one-sided impersonalist view, his fullness is diminished. Purport: the Supreme Personality of Godhead is originally the Supreme Person, and he expands himself impersonally through his potency, as the Lord says in Bhagavad-Gita 9.4, Maya Tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina matsthani sarvabhutani na chaham teshva avasthita. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. The potency of Krishna is that is spread everywhere is impersonal, just as the sunlight is the impersonal expansion of the sun globe and sun god. If we simply take one side of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his impersonal effulgence, that one side does not fully explain the absolute truth. Impersonal appreciation of the absolute truth is one-sided and incomplete. One should also accept the other side, the personal side, Bhagwan. Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagwan iti shabdyate. One should not be satisfied simply by understanding the Brahman feature of the personality of Godhead. One must also know the Lord's personal feature, that is complete understanding of the absolute truth. Verse 34, Shruti Purana kahe, Krishnera chit shakti vilasa taha nahi mani pandita kare upahas. The Vedas, the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutra, the Purans all describe the activities of the spiritual potency of the Lord. If one cannot accept the personal activities of the Lord, he jokes foolishly and gives an impersonal description. Purport: in the Vedic literatures, including the Purans, there are full descriptions of the spiritual potency of Krishna. All the pastimes of the Lord are eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge, just as the form of Krishna himself is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Sachidanand Vigraha. Unintelligent people with poor fund of knowledge compare their temporary bodies to the spiritual body of Krishna, and by such foolishness they try to understand Krishna as one of them. Avajananti ma mudha manushim tanum ashritam. The Bhagavad-Gita 9.11 points out that the foolish people think that Krishna as one of them. Not understanding his spiritual potency, they simply decry the personal form of the absolute truth, foolishly thinking of themselves as jnanis, cognizant of the complete truth. They cannot understand that just as the material energy of the Lord has a variety of activities, the spiritual energy has variety also. They consider activities in devotional service the same as activities in material consciousness. Under such a wrong impression, they sometimes dare joke about the spiritual activities of the Lord and his devotional service. Verse 35, Chid Anand Krishna Vigraha Maika Kari Mani E Bada Pap Satya Chaitanya Ravani. The Mayavadis do not recognize the personal form of the Lord as spiritual and full of bliss. This is a great sin. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's statements are actually factual. Purport: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement especially aims at defeating the Mayavad conclusion about the absolute truth. Since the members of the Mayavad school cannot understand the spiritual form of the Lord, they incorrectly think the Lord's form is also made of material energy. They think that he is covered by a material body just like other living beings. Due to this offensive understanding, they cannot recognize that Sri Krishna's personal form is transcendental, not material. Their conclusion is a great offense at the lotus feet of the Lord. As explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna has his eternal, blissful form that is full of knowledge, and all Vaiṣṇava Acharyas accept this. That is the proper understanding of the absolute truth. Verse 36, Nataha Param Parama Yad Bhavataha Swarupam Ananda Matram Avikalpam Avidha Varachaha Pashyami Vishva Srijam Ekam Avisham Atmam bhutendriyatmakam adasta upashritosmi. O Supreme One, the transcendental form I am now seeing is full of transcendental bliss. It is not contaminated by the external energy. It is full of effulgence. My Lord, there is no better understanding of you than this. You are the Supreme Soul and the creator of this material world, but you are not connected with the material world. You are completely different from created form and variety. I sincerely take shelter of that form of yours which I am now seeing. This form is the original source of all the living beings and their senses. Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 3.9.3. This verse was spoken by Lord Brahma, who perfectly realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead after meditating upon the Lord within the water of Garbhodhak ocean. Brahma realized that the form of Lord is completely spiritual. This is certainly a better understanding of the Absolute than the impersonal understanding. Verse 37. Drishtam Shrutam Bhuta Bhavad Bhavishyat Sthanush Charishnur Mahat Alpakam Va Vina Chutad Vastu Taram Na Vachyam Sa Eva Sarvam Paramatma Bhutah. Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the cause of all causes. He is past, present, and future, and He is the immovable and movable and immovable. He is the greatest and the smallest. He is visible and directly experienced. He is celebrated in the Vedic literature. Everything is Krishna, and without Him there is no existence. He is the root of all understanding, and He is that which is understood by all words. Purport. This verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.46.43 was spoken by Uddhav when he came to pacify all the inhabitants of Vrindavan during Krishna's absence. Verse 38. Tadva idam bhuvanna mangala mangalaya dhyane smana darshitam ta upasakanam tasmai namo bhagavate nuvidhem tubhyam yo nadrito naraka bhagabir asat prasangaye. O most auspicious one, for our benefit you enable our worship of you by manifesting your transcendental form, which you show to us in our meditation. We offer our respectful obeisances unto you, the Supreme Person, and we worship you, whom impersonalists do not accept due to their poor fund of knowledge. Thus they are liable to descend into hellish conditions. Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 3.9.4. Verse 39. Avijananti ma mudha manushim tanumashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools disrespect me because I appear like a human being. They do not know my supreme position as the cause of all causes, the creator of the material energy. Purport. This is a quotation from Bhagavad-Gita 9.11. Verse 40. Tan aham dvishtah kruran samsareshu naradhaman kshipami ajasaram ashubhan ashrush ishva eva yonishu. Those who are envious of my form, those who are cruel and mischievous and the lowest among men, are perpetually cast by me into hellish existence in various demoniac species of life. Purport. This is also quotation from the Bhagavad-Gita 16.19. Verse 41. Sutrera parinamavad taha namaniya vivartavad sthape vyasa bhranta baliya. Not accepting the transformation of energy, Sripad Shankaracharya has tried to establish the theory of illusion under the plea that Vyasadeva has made a mistake. Purport. For an explanation of this verse, one may refer to Adi Lila chapter 7 verses 121 to 126. Verse 42. Eta kalpita artha mane nahi bhaya shastra chadi kukalpana pashande bujhaya. Sripad Shankaracharya has given his interpretation and imaginary, meaning it does not actually appeal to the mind of any sane man. He has done this to convince the atheists and bring them under his control. Purport: Sripad Shankaracharya's propaganda opposed the atheistic philosophy of Buddha. Lord Buddha's intention was to stop atheists from committing the sin of killing animals. Atheists cannot understand God, therefore Lord Buddha appeared and spread the philosophy of non-violence to keep the atheists from killing animals. Unless one is free from this sin of animal killing, he cannot understand religion of God. Although Lord Buddha was an incarnation of Krishna, he did not speak about God, for the people were unable to understand it. He simply wanted to stop animal killing. Sripad's Shankaracharya wanted to establish the predominance of one's spiritual identity. Therefore, he wanted to convert the atheists through an imaginary interpretation of the Vedic literatures. These are the secrets of the Acharyas. Sometimes they conceal the real purport of the Vedas and explain the Vedas in a different way. Sometimes they enunciate a different theory just to bring the atheists under their control. Thus, it is said that Shankar's philosophy is for Pashandas or the atheists. Verse 43. Paramarth vichar gela kari matra vad, kahan murti pab, kahan krishnera prasad. The atheists, headed by Mayavadi philosophers, do not care for liberation or Krishna's mercy. They simply continue to put forward false arguments and counter theories to atheistic philosophy, not understanding or engaging in spiritual matters. Verse 44. Vyas sutrera artha acharya kariyache achadana ei haya satya Shri Krishna Chaitanya vachana. The conclusion is that the import of the Vedanta Sutra is covered by the imaginary explanation of Shankaracharya. Whatever Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said is perfectly true. Verse 45. Chaitanya Gosani ye kahe se matasar aryat mata se sab charakhar. Whatever meanings Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives is perfect. Any other interpretation is only a distortion. Verse 46. Eta kahi se kare Krishna Sankirtan shuni Prakashananda kichu kahena vachana. After saying this, the disciple of Prakashananda Saraswati began to chant the holy name of Krishna. Hearing this, Prakashananda Saraswati made the following statement. Verse 47. Acharya agraha advaita vada sthapite tate sutrarth vyakhya kare anya rite. Prakashananda Saraswati said Shankaracharya was very eager to establish the philosophy of monism. Therefore, he explained the Vedanta Sutra or Vedanta philosophy in a different way to support monistic philosophy. Verse 48. Bhagavat mane manilya advaita na yaya sthapana ateva sab shastra karaye khandana. If one accepts the personality of Godhead, the philosophy that maintains that God and the living entity are one cannot be established. Therefore, Shankaracharyas argued against and refuted all kinds of revealed scriptures. Verse 49. Ye grantha karta chahe swamata sthapite shastrera sahaja artha nahe tanha haite. Anyone who wants to establish his own opinion or philosophy certainly cannot explain any scripture according to the principle of direct interpretation. Verse 50. Mimansak kahe Ishwar haya karmera ang Sankhya kahe jagatera prakriti karana prasang. The Mimansak philosophers conclude that there is God, he is subject to our fruitive activities. Similarly, the Sankhya philosophers who analyze the cosmic manifestations say that the cause of cosmos is material nature. Verse 51. Nyaya kahe paramanu haite vishvahaya mayavadi nirvishesh brahme hetu kaya. The followers of Nyaya, the philosophy of logic, maintain that the atom is the cause of the cosmic manifestation, and the Mayavadi philosophers maintain that the impersonal Brahman effulgence is the cause of cosmic manifestation. Verse 52. Patanjala kahe Ishwar hai swarup gyan ved mate kahe tanre swayam bhagwan. The Patanjal philosophers say that when one is self-realized, he understands the Lord. Similarly, according to the Vedas and Vedic principles, the original cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Verse 53. Chayamata vyasa kaila avartana saisa basutra lena vedanta varnana. After studying the 6 philosophical theses, Vyasadeva completely summarized them all in the aphorisms of Vedanta philosophy. Verse 54. Vedanta mate brahma sakar nirupana nirguna vyatir ke tinho haya sa ta saguna. According to Vedanta philosophy, the absolute truth is a person. When the word nirguna, without qualities, is used, it is understood that the Lord has attributes that are totally spiritual. Verse 55. Param karana ishwara keha nahi mane swaswa mat sthape paramatera khandane. Of the philosophers mentioned, none really cares for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes. They are always busy refuting this philosophical theories of others and establishing their own. Verse 56. Tate chai darshana haite tattva nahi jani mahajan ye kahe say satyamani. By studying the 6 philosophical theories, one cannot reach this absolute truth. It is therefore our duty to follow the path of Mahajans. The authorities, whatever they say, should be accepted as the supreme truth. Purport. In this Amrit Prabha Bhashya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives the following summary of the 6 philosophical processes. Prakashananda admitted that Sripad Shankaracharya, being very eager to establish his philosophy of monism, took shelter of the Vedanta philosophy and tried to explain it in his own way. The fact is that, however, that if one accepts the existence of God, one certainly cannot establish the theory of monism. For this reason, Shankaracharya united all kinds of Vedic literature that established the supremacy of the personality of Godhead in various ways. Shankaracharya has tried to refute the Vedic literature throughout the world. 99% of philosophers following the footsteps of Shankaracharya refused to accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Instead, they try to establish their own opinion. It is typically of mundane philosophers to want to establish their own opinion and refute those of others. Therefore, the Mimamsak philosophers, following the principles of Jaimini, stress fruitive activity and say that there is God. He must be under the laws of fruitive activities. In other words, if one performs the duties very nicely in the material world, God is obliged to give one the desired results. According to these philosophers, there are no need to become devotee of God if one strictly follows moral principles. I've lost it. Vedic principles of Bhakti Yoga. Instead, they give stress to following one's prescribed duty. Atheistic Sankhya philosophers like Kapil analyze the material elements very scrutinizingly and thereby come to the conclusion that material nature is the cause of everything. They do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the cause of all causes. Nyaya philosophers like Gautam and Kanad have accepted a combination of atoms as an original cause of the creation. Mayavadi philosophers say that everything is an illusion. Headed by philosophers like Ashtavakra, they stress the impersonal Brahman effulgence as the cause of everything. Philosophers following the precepts of Patanjali practice Raj Yoga. They imagine a form of absolute truth within many forms. That is the process of self-realization. All five of these philosophers completely reject the performance or predominance of Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they strive to establish their own philosophical theories. However, Srila Vyasadeva wrote the Vedanta Sutra, and taking the essence of all Vedic literature, established the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All five kinds of philosophers mentioned above understand that impersonal Brahman is without material qualities, and they believe that when the personality of Godhead appears, he is contaminated and covered by the material qualities. The technical term used is Saguna. They speak of Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman. For them, Nirgun Brahman means impersonal absolute truth without any material qualities, and Sagun Brahman means the absolute truth that accepts the contamination of establishes this kind of more or less this kind of philosophical speculation is called Mayavad philosophy, because it is accepting that the absolute truth that accepts the contamination of material qualities. The fact is that, however, absolute truth never has anything to do with material qualities, because he is transcendental. He is always complete with full spiritual qualities. The five philosophers mentioned above do not accept Lord Vishnu in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they are also busy ruling the philosophers of other schools. There are 6 kinds of philosophical process in India, because Vyasadeva is the Vedic authority. He is known as Vedavyas. His philosophical explanation of the Vedanta Sutra is accepted by the devotees, as Krishna confirms in Bhagavad-Gita 15.15. Sarvasya chaham hridhi sannivishto mattah smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedeshya sarver ahamev vedya vedant krit veda ved evachaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. The ultimate goal of studying all Vedic literature is the acceptance of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Krishna consciousness movement is propagating the philosophical conclusion of Srila Vyasadeva and following other great acharyas like Rāmanujacārya, Madhvacārya, Vishnu Swami, Nimbark, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Verse 257, Tarko Pratishtha Shruyato Vibhinna Nasha Rishiryasya Matam Na Bhinnam Dharmasya Tattvam Nihitam Guhayam Mahajano Yena Gatah Sa Panthaha. Dry arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is considered a great sage. Simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to this right path. It is by such religious principles I understand that solid truth of religious principles is that it is hidden principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. Consequently, the Shastras confirm that one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajans advocate. Purport, this is spoken by Yudhishthira Maharaj in the Mahabharata Parva 3.13 to 3.17. Verse 58. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Vani Amritera Dhara Tinho Ye Kahiye Vastu Sai Tattva Sara. The words of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are the showers of nectar whatever he concludes to the ultimate truth is indeed the summum bonum of all spiritual knowledge. Verse 59, E sab vritant shuni Maharashtriya Brahman Prabhure kahite sukhe karila gaman. After seeing all these statements, after hearing all these statements, the Maharashtrian Brahman very jubilantly went to inform Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Verse 60, Hena kale Mahaprabhu panch nade snan kari dekhite chaliya chena bindu madhavari. When the Maharashtrian Brahman went to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord was going to temple of Bindu Madhav after bathing in the waters of Panchanad. Verse 361, Pathe ye se vipra sabha vritanta kahila shuni Mahaprabhu sukhe shad aira. The Lord was on his way. The Maharashtrian Brahman informed him about the incident that took place in the camp of Prakashananda Saraswati. Hearing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled happily. Verse 62, Madhav Saundare dekhi avisht haila angane te ashi preme nachite lagila. Verse 62, Madhav Saundare dekhi avisht haila angane te ashi preme nachite lagila. I think I'm repeating this. Upon reaching the temple of Bindu Madhav, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, seeing the beauty of Lord Bindu Madhav, became overwhelmed in ecstatic love. He then began to dance in the courtyard of the temple. There were four people. Verse 63, Shekhar Paramananda Tapan Sanatana Chari Jana Mili Kare Nama Sankirtan. There were four people accompanying Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and these were Chandrasekhar, Paramananda Puri, Tapan Mishra, and Sanatan Goswami. They were all chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra in the following way. Verse 64, Hare Namaha Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana. They chanted Hare Namaha Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. This is another way of chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. The meanings is as follows. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the descendant of the Yadu family. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto Gopal, Govinda, Ram, and Madhusudan. Verse 65, Chaudhi Kete Lakshalok Bale Hari Hari Uthila Mangal Dhvani Swarga Martya Bhari. In all directions, hundreds of thousands of people began to chant Hari Hari. Thus, there arose a tumultuous and auspicious sound filling the entire universe. Verse 66, Nikate Hari Dhvani Shuni Prakashananda Dekhite Kautuke Aila Lena Shishya Vrinda. When Prakashananda Saraswati, who was staying nearby, heard this tumultuous chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, he and his disciples immediately came to see the Lord. Verse 67, Dekhiya Prabhura Nritya Prema Dehera Madhuri Shishya Gangana Sange Se Bale Hari Hari. When Prakashananda Saraswati saw the Lord, he and his disciples also joined the chanting which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Prakashananda Saraswati was charmed by the Lord's dancing and ecstatic love and by the transcendental beauty of his body. Verse 68, Kampa Swara Bhanga Sweda Varnaya Stambha Ashru Dharaye Bije Lok Pulak Kadamba. Ecstatic spiritual transformations began to take place in the Lord's body. His body trembled and his voice faltered. He perspired, turned pale, and wept a constant flow of tears, which wet all the people standing there. The eruptions on the Lord's body appeared like kadamba flowers. Verse 69, Harsha Danya Chapalyadi Sanchari Vikar Dekhi Kashivasi Loker Haila Chamatkar. All the people were astonished to see the Lord's jubilation and humility and to hear him talk in ecstasy. Indeed, all the residents of Banaras or Kashi saw the bodily transformations and were astonished. Verse 70, Loka Sanghat Dekhi Prabhura Bahaya Yabe Haila Sanyasir Gana Dekhi Nritya Sambarila. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regained his external consciousness, he saw that many Mayavadi sannyasis and other people were gathered there. He therefore suspended his dancing for time being. Verse 71, Prakashanandera Prabhu Vandila Charana Prakashananda Asi Tandra Dharila Charana. After stopping the kirtan, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is a great example of humility, offered prayers unto the feet of Prakashananda Saraswati. At this, Prakashananda Saraswati immediately came forward and clasped the Lord's lotus feet. Verse 72, Prabhu kahe tumi Jagat Guru Pujyatma Ami tomar nahai Shishyera Shishya Sama. When Prakashananda Saraswati caught hold of the Lord's lotus feet, the Lord said, My dear sir, you are the spiritual master of the whole world. Therefore, you are most worshipable. As far as I am concerned, I am not even on the level of the disciple of your disciple. Purport, Mayavadi sannyasis generally call themselves Jagat Guru, the spiritual master of the whole world. Many consider themselves worshipable by everyone, although they do not even go outside India or their own district. Out of his great magnanimity and humility, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented himself as a subordinate disciple of Prakashananda Saraswati. Verse 73, Shreshta Hena Kene Kar Hinera Vandana Amar Sarva Nash Haya Tumi Brahma Sama. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, You are a great spiritually advanced personality and therefore you cannot worship a person like me. I am far inferior. If you do so, my spiritual power will be diminished, for you are as good as the impersonal Brahman. Verse 74, Yadyapi tomare sava brahma samabhase lok shiksha lagi aiche karite na aise. My dear sir, for you, everyone is on the level of impersonal Brahman, but for the enlightened people, in general, you should not behave in that way. Verse 75, Teno kahe tomar purve ninda aparadh ye karila, tomar charana sparshe sab kshay gela. Prakashananda Saraswati replied, Formerly I committed many offenses against you by blaspheming you, but now the effects of my offenses are counteracted by my touching your lotus feet. Verse 76, Jivan Mukta Api Punar Yanti Samsara Vasanam Yadi Achintya Maha Shaktau Bhagavati Aparadhinaha. If a person considered liberated in this life commits offenses against the reservoir of inconceivable potencies, the Supreme Personality of Godhead will again fall down and desire the material atmosphere for material enjoyment. Verse 77, Savai Bhagavataha Srimat Padasparsha Hata Shubha Bheje Sarpa Vapur Hitva Rupam Vidya Dhara Charitam. Being touched by the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, that serpent was immediately freed from the reactions of his sinful life. Thus the serpent gave up his body and assumed the body of a beautiful Vidyadhar demigod. Purport, this is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.34.9. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, under the leadership of Nanda Maharaj, once went to the bank of Saraswati on a pilgrimage. Nanda Maharaj was fasting and he laid down near the forest. At that time, a serpent who was formerly cursed by Angiras Rishi appeared. This serpent had formerly been named Sudarshan and he belonged to the Vidyadhar planet. However, because he joked with the Rishi, he was condemned to take on the body of a big snake. When this serpent attacked Nanda Maharaj began to call Krishna help. Krishna immediately appeared and began to kick the serpent with his lotus feet. Due to being touched by the Lord's lotus feet, the serpent was immediately freed from the reactions of his sinful life. Being freed, he again assumed his original form of Sudarshan, the Vidyadhar. Verse 78, Prabhu kahe Vishnu Vishnu Ami Kshudra Jeev Hina Jeev Vishnu Mani E Aparadha Chirna. When Prakashananda Saraswati supported himself by quoting the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately protested by uttering the holy name of Lord Vishnu. The Lord then presented himself as a most fallen living entity, and he said, if someone accepts a fallen conditioned soul as Vishnu, Bhagwan, or an incarnation, he commits a great offense. Purport: although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to teach us a lesson, he nonetheless denied belonging to the Vishnu category. Unfortunately, there are so many so-called Vishnu incarnations in this age of Kali, people who do not know that posing oneself as an incarnation is most offensive. People should not accept an ordinary man as an incarnation of God, for this is also a very great offense. Verse 79, Jive Vishnu Buddhi Dhure Ye Brahma Rudra Sama Narayane Mane Tare Pashandite Ganana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued to say, nothing of ordinary living entities, even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, cannot be considered on the level of Vishnu or Narayan. If one considers them as such, he is immediately considered an offender and atheist. Verse 80, Yastu Narayanam Devam Brahma Rudradi Daivate Samatvaneva Viksheta Sa Pashandi Bhave Dhruvam. A person who considers demigods like Brahma and Shiva to be on an equal level with Narayan is to be considered an offender or Pashandi. Verse 81, Prakashananda kahe tumi sakshat Bhagwan tabu yadi kar tanra das abhiman. Prakashananda replied, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. Nonetheless, you are considering yourself his eternal servant. Verse 82, Tabu Pujya How Tumi Bad Ama Haite Sarva Nash Haya Mor Tomar Nindate. My dear Lord, you are the Supreme Lord, and although you consider yourself the Lord's servant, you are nonetheless worshipable. You are much greater than I am, therefore all my spiritual achievements have been lost because I have blasphemed you. Verse 83, Muktanam api siddhanam narayana parayana sudurlabha prashantatma kotishva api mahamune. O great sage, out of many millions of materially liberated people who are free from ignorance, and out of many millions of siddhas who have nearly attained perfection, there is hardly one pure devotee of Narayan. Only such a devotee is actually completely satisfied and peaceful. Purport: this verse is quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam 6.14.5. Verse 84, Ayu Shriyam Yasho Dharmam Lokan Ashish Evacha Hanti Shreyamsi Sarvani Pumso Mahad Atikramaha. When a person mistreats great souls, his lifespan, opulence, reputation, religion, possessions, and good fortune are all destroyed. Purport: this statement from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.4.46 was made by Shukadev Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. Verse 85, Naisham Matistavad Urukraman Grihim Prishati Anartha Pagamo Yad Artha Mahiyasam Padarajo Bhishekam Nishkinchananam Na Vrinita Yavat. Unless human society accepts the dust of the lotus feet of great Mahatmas, devotees who have nothing to do with the material possessions, mankind cannot turn its attention to the lotus feet of Krishna. These lotus feet vanquish all the unwanted, miserable conditions of material life. Purport: this verse appears in the Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.32. For an explanation, see Madhya Lila 22.53. Verse 86. Ebe tomar padabje upjibe bhakti tathi lagi kari tomar charane pranati. Henceforward I shall certainly develop devotional service unto your lotus feet. For this reason I have come to you and have fallen down at your lotus feet. Verse 87. Eta bali prabhure lena tathai vasila prabhure prakashanand puchite lagila. After saying this, Prakashanand Saraswati sat down with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and began to question the Lord as follows. Verse 88. Mayavade karila yata doshera akhyana sabe ei jani acharyera kalpita vyakhyan. Prakashananda Saraswati said, we can understand the faults you have pointed out in the Mayavad philosophy. All the explanations given by Shankaracharya are imaginary. Verse 89. Sutrera karila tumi mukhyartha vivarana taha shuni sabar haila chamatkar mana. My dear Lord, whatever direct meaning you have given when explaining the Brahma Sutra is certainly very wonderful to all of us. Verse 90. Tumi ta Ishwara tumara ache sarva shakti sankshepa rupe kaha tumi shunite hayamati. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and therefore you have inconceivable energies. I wish to hear from you briefly about the Brahma Sutra. Purport: Prakashananda Saraswati said they had already understood Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's explanation of the direct import of the Brahma Sutra. Nonetheless, he was requesting the Lord to now briefly give the purport of the Brahma Sutra, the Vedanta Sutra. Verse 91. Prabhu kahe ami jiva ati tuchha jnana vyasa sutrera gambhira artha vyasa bhagavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, I am an ordinary living being and therefore my knowledge is very insignificant. Therefore the meaning of the Brahma Sutra is very grave, because its author Vyasadeva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. But an ordinary living being cannot actually understand the meaning of the Vedanta Sutra. One can understand the meaning if he hears it from the authority Vyasadeva himself. For this purpose, Vyasadeva gave a commentary on the Brahma Sutra in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. He had been instructed to do so by his spiritual master Narad. Of course, Shankaracharya distorted the meaning of the Brahma Sutra because he had a motive to serve. He wanted to establish Vedic knowledge in place of the atheistic knowledge spread by Lord Buddha. All these necessities are there according to time and circumstances. Neither Lord Buddha nor Shankaracharya is to be blamed. The time required such an explanation for the understanding of the various types of atheists. The conclusion is that one cannot understand the meaning of the Vedanta Sutra without going through Srimad Bhagavatam and rendering devotional service. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore further explains the matter in the following verses. Verse 92. Tandra sutrera artha kona jiva nahi jane ataiva apane sutrartha kariyache vyakhyane. The purport of the Vedanta Sutra is very difficult for an ordinary person to understand, but Vyasadeva, out of his causeless mercy, has personally explained the meaning. Verse 93. Ye sutra karta ye yadi kare vyakhyan tabe sutrera mool artha lokera hai gyan. If the Vedanta Sutra is explained by Vyasadeva himself, who has written its original meaning, can be understood by the people in general. Verse 94. Pranavera ye artha gayatri te sehaya se artha chatushloki te vivariya kaya. The meaning of the sound vibration Omkar is present in the Gayatri mantra. The same is elaborately explained in the 4 shlokas of Srimad Bhagavatam known as Chatushloki. Verse 95. Brahmare Ishvara Shratu Shloki Ye Kahila Brahma Narade Se Upadesha Kaila. Whatever was spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to Lord Brahma in those 4 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam was also explained to Narad by Lord Brahma. Verse 96. Narad se artha vyasera kahila shuni ved vyasa mane vichar karila. Whatever Lord Brahma told Narad Muni was again explained by Narad Muni to Vyasadev. Vyasadev later considered these instructions in his mind. Verse 97. Ayartha amara sutrera vyakhyana rupa Bhagavad Kariba Sutrera Bhashya Swarupa. Srila Vyasadeva considered that whatever he had received from Narad Muni as an explanation of Omkar, he would elaborately explain in his book Srimad Bhagavatam as a commentary on the Brahma Sutra. Purport: the sound vibration Omkar is the root of Vedic knowledge. Omkar is known as Maha Vakya or Supreme Sound. Whatever meaning is in the Supreme Sound Omkar is further understood in the Gayatri Mantra. Again, this same meaning is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 4 shlokas known as Chatushloki, which begin with the words Aham Evasam Evagre. The Lord says, only I existed before the creation. From this statement, 4 shlokas have been composed, and these are known as Chatushloki. In this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead informed Lord Brahma about the purport of the Chatushloki. Again, Lord Brahma explained this to Narad Muni, and Narad Muni explained to Srila Vyasadeva. This is the Parampara system, the disciplic succession, the import of the Vedic knowledge. The original word Pranav has been explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. The conclusion is that the Brahma Samsutra is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Verse 98. Chari Vedupanishade Yata Kichuhaya Tara Arthalena Vyasa Karila Sanchaya. Vyasadeva collected whatever Vedic conclusions were in the 4 Vedas and 108 Upanishads and placed them in the aphorisms of the Vedanta Sutra. Verse 99. Ye Sutre Ye Rik Vishay Vachana Bhagavate Se Rik Shloke Nibandhana. In the Vedanta Sutra, the purport of all Vedic knowledge is explained, and in Srimad Bhagavatam, the same purport has been explained in 18,000 verses. Verse 100. Ataev Brahma Sutrera Bhashya Shri Bhagavata Bhagavata Shloka Upanishad Kahe Ekmata. Therefore, it is to be concluded that the Brahma Sutra is explained vividly in Srimad Bhagavatam. Also, that is explained in the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam has the same purport as that is explained in the Upanishads. Verse 101. Atma Vasyam Idam Viswam Yat Kinchit Jagatayam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bhunjita Ma Gridah Kasya Svid Dhanam. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things for himself that are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Purport: this is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 8.1.10. Communists and socialists are trying to propagate the philosophy that everything belongs to the mass of people or to the state. Such an idea is not perfect. When this idea is explained, we can see that everything belongs to God. That will be the perfection of the communistic idea. The purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam is here very nicely explained. Every one of us must be satisfied with those things the Supreme Personality of Godhead has allotted us. We should not encroach upon the possessions of others. This simple idea can be expanded in our daily lives. Everyone should have a piece of land given by the government, and everyone should possess a few cows. Both of these should be utilized for one's daily bread. Above that, if something is manufactured in a factory, it should be considered the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because the ingredients belong to the Supreme Lord. Actually, there is no need to manufacture such things artificially, but if it is done, one should consider that the goods produced belong to the Supreme Lord. Spiritual communism recognizes the supreme proprietorship of the Supreme Lord, as Lord Krishna explains in the Bhagavad-Gita 5.29, Bhoktaram Yagitapasam Sarvalok Maheshwaram Suridam sarvabhutanam gyatvam mam shantim richati. A person in full Krishna consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all the sacrifice and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. It is further explained in Srimad Bhagavatam that no one should claim anything as his property. Whatever property one claims to be his actually belongs to Krishna. One should be satisfied with whatever has been allotted by the Supreme Lord and should not encroach upon the property of others. This will lead to peace in the whole world. Verse 102. Bhagavatera sambandha videya prayojan chatushlokite prakatar kariyache lakshana. The essence of Srimad Bhagavatam, our relationship with the Supreme Lord, our activities in that connection, and the goal of life is manifest in the 4 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam known as Chatushloki. Everything is explained in those verses. So we'll continue reading from verse 103 next time. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.